أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. To continue with the regulations and ahkam of the prayers, you can perform an advisory prayer, mustahab, if you still have something mandatory on your, still you owe a mandatory prayer as a qada. If you remember when we talked about the fasting, we said in the fasting, you cannot perform advisory fasting, meaning a mustahab fasting, if you have something that you owe. You have to finish with the mandatory fasting first. Once you're done with that, then you can start your advisory fasting. But this is different in the prayers. The prayers, you can perform the advisory fasting and still have your mandatory fasting. For example, from years before you did not perform them, you can do that, and you can do the advisory fasting. This is number one. Regarding the timing of the prayers, remember last night we talked about the specific time for each prayer. The scholars say that you have to perform the entire prayer within the time allocated. Don't allow the time to pass while you are still in your prayers. If that happens, you need to curtail on the mustahabbat, and sometimes even wajibat. Mustahabbat like qunut. You don't have to say, the qunut. Or instead of saying Subhana Rabbiyal Azim wa bihamdih, Subhanallah, 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 you can say either one. You don't need to do, all of those. Even when it gets too short, meaning the time does not even allow you for the wajibat, the surah also falls. For example, you only recite Surah Al-Hamd. Because if you wait a little bit and do the surah, then let's say the sun will appear and then you miss Salat al-Subh. So you have to include the entire prayers within within the time allocated. At the same time, you cannot pray before the timing. For example, you know that dawn start at 4:15, let's just assume. And then you did, by your intention, you thought that 4:15 is the time where there is dawn, and you did the prayers, but later on, the brothers, sisters, the calendar told you, no, it was not that, it was 4:20, and you have done all the prayers within, before the time of dawn. You have to repeat that prayer. So, timing is very crucial. You have to do it within the timing of your prayers. Now, if you remember, last night we talked about Dhuhr and Asr, Maghrib and Isha. And we said at the beginning of the time, the few moments, the few minutes at the beginning belong only to Dhuhr or to Maghrib. And the last minutes, when it becomes Qada, belong only to Asr and Isha. Those are the times that's specifically designed for that prayer. For example, someone has not done his Dhuhr and Asr prayers, comes just 3 minutes, 4 minutes before sunset. Which prayer does he do? If he does Dhuhr, he's going to miss Asr. And if he does Asr, he's going to miss Dhuhr. The ulama say the last few minutes belong to Asr. You do Asr Ada, you finish with Asr, and then you can do the Dhuhr prayer as Qada, something that has passed your time. So that is the importance of the timing. At the beginning of the time belongs to Dhuhr. The last minutes of the time before sunset belong only to the Asr, and the rest is communal between the two. Now there are conditions for the prayers. Before I say the conditions, there is one mas'ala. And that is if somebody has an excuse, for example. His clothes are not clean, they're najis. and he has only that, set of clothes. He cannot go home, for example, he's at work, for example. He should wait, and let's say now it's noon, he should wait. If he knows he get back home before sunset to change his clothes, he has to wait until he gets home, changes his clothes, and do his prayers. But let's say if the timing does not allow him, meaning that if he stay longer, when he goes back home, the sunset has already been there and he misses the prayer. At that time, he can perform the prayer in his najis clothes. So timing again is very crucial. Now, there are conditions for the prayers to meet, for the prayer to be valid, before the prayer itself. We will be talking about them one by one. Today only we will be talking about one. Number one is the Qibla. Qibla is the direction of Kaaba. Either you pinpoint exact direction, or the estimate, the rough direction that is so close to the real direction. That is the mandatory, that's a precondition for the prayer. You have to do that. Now let's say you don't know. What is the options? How can you find out? And there is no one to ask, there is no reliable one to ask. There are, few signs. For example, in Muslim country, the cemeteries, when they, bury the dead, they bury them according to the, according to the Qibla. They lay, their body is laid according to the Qibla. So if he looks at the direction of the graves, he can find where the Qibla is. Now he has to ask. For example, in North America, usually the Qibla is northeast, somewhere between east and north, usually northeast. The farther you go to north, it becomes east. The souther you go, it becomes northeast. This is the direction of Qibla. You have to do your best to pinpoint where the Qibla is. If, let's say, you cannot find it by any way, if you have time, you do the prayers in 4 different directions. One prayer is so much for us. If we don't know the Qibla, we do it in 4 different. I will get to your question, inshallah, later, if you can do. So if you have enough time, you do in 4 different directions. If, let's say, you probably think it is this way or that way, you pinpoint only to 2 states. For example, east and northeast. Then you pray it into northeast. Let's say that you did the prayers. While you are doing the prayers, you paid attention that the Qibla is not in the direction that you are. You pause, stop reciting anything, and then turn your face. Let's say 90 degree. Then you turn 90 degree, and then you continue with your prayers. But you have to be quiet. You should not say anything. While in the movement, you cannot recite any of the prayer's components. Now, let's say after the prayer, you found out that the Qibla was wrong. If it's below 90 degree, no worries. Let's say you are praying this way and the Qibla was like this. After the prayers, someone came and told you, no, the prayer has to be this way. Below 90 degree. If it's less than 90 degree, your salat, your prayer is valid. There is no problem. Let's say no, if it's 180 degree, more than 90 degree. If you have time, you will repeat it. If you don't have time, meaning that you just, did the prayers 5 minutes before sunrise or sunset or whatever the prayer was done for that moment, khalas. Once you've done it and there is no time for it, you don't need to do qada. Okay, those are the first conditions. If there are additional conditions, inshallah, we will be talking about them next night. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.